So today, I want to talk about this book, this author, Hanoch Levin. He's an Israeli playwright. He died in 1999 at an early age of 56 years old from cancer. He's been compared to the plays of Samuel Beckett for his sort of absurdist kind of theater. And he grew up in a very religious household, Jewish religious household in Israel, and he was a harsh critic of Israel society. And he wrote anti-war plays and poetry, and his work sort of flew in the face of a lot of the, nationalistic social context in which he was writing. And as a result, his plays were extremely controversial. He was often protested. There are all sorts of stories of, basically almost violence erupting at some of his shows, plays being shut down, actors refusing to play in them. And later in life, he became more celebrated by the art community, you might say, in Israel and beyond. So this is what he looks like. This is his Wikipedia page, which you can consult later. But let's start. So he started writing in the 1970s. At least that's when that's the plays, the work. I guess reading on Wikipedia, he has some stuff from earlier than the 1970s. But the stuff that I'm familiar with starts around 1970. And it is in the aftermath of Israel's Six-Day War. And so at this time period, Israel is swept up at this peak of nationalistic fervor. Israel was under a tremendous threat by surrounding Arab nations, and it fought this war of defense, and it was very successful and won very quickly. And in addition to winning this war, it suddenly had opportunity to go on the offensive, and it conquered territory. It conquered the entire Sinai Peninsula from Egypt. It ended up giving that back in a peace treaty, but it conquered the West Bank and areas around the Gaza and areas in the north of Israel. And there was just so much of a deep sense of biblical times that we're living through. And I know what that's like because, of course, I very much grew up in that and felt that myself, reading about these stories and meeting the people who fought in these wars. And it's so easy to get swept up in that. But Hanoch Levin did not get swept up in that. And he criticized the militaristic, the expansionary aims of his society. Of course, he had no problem with a defensive war, but he foresaw, like other intellectuals and academics at the time did, the danger of trying to rule over a hostile population. The danger of trying to expand your borders so that you have people that are not citizens, but you are controlling them and you control their freedom of movement and to what extent they're able to enforce their laws and control their borders and control their own government and on and on. And he was not enthused about that. So let's look at a short play he wrote in the year 1970, which is one of his shows that received tremendous amount of controversy at the time. The Akedah, the binding. And this is Hanoch Levin's retelling, re-rendering of the binding of Isaac from the Bible. So those who may know, in the Bible you have the story of the binding of Isaac where God commands Abraham to sacrifice his son. And Abraham willingly takes up Isaac to the altar to be sacrificed. And at the last moment, as Abraham is about to sacrifice his son, an angel calls out and says, stay your hand, don't sacrifice your son. Sacrifice a goat instead. Okay. Very well-known story, very important story in the Jewish cultural, mind. And Hanoch Levin rewrites it. And in this version, Abraham represents the older generation, the generation of the fathers that send their sons off to war to die. And he put this on. And implicit in this is a profound critique of Israeli society, which we're going to look at now. So Abraham says, Isaac, my son, do you know what I'm going to do to you now? And Isaac says, yes, father, you're going to slaughter me. And Abraham says, God commanded me, right? And this is the essence of the play and the essence of Hanoch Levin's critique, this sense of God has commanded this. This is necessary, right? We have to go to war, we have to conquer, we have to rule. God commanded me. Isaac says, I have no complaints against you, Father. If you need to slaughter, go ahead, slaughter. Abraham says, I have to slaughter. I'm afraid there's no choice. Isaac, I understand. You don't have to make it hard for yourself. Simply get up and draw the knife at me. Abraham, I'm only doing it as God's messenger, right? Abraham wants to reinforce he has no choice in the matter. This is the religious fervor speaking. He has to do it. Isaac says, sure, as a messenger, Father. So get up as a messenger and draw the knife as a messenger at your son, your one and only whom you love. And Abraham sees what's going on. He says, very nice, Isaac. Make it hard on your poor father. Put him in a mood as if he hasn't got one anyhow. Who's making it hard, Father? Get up quietly and liquidate in one fatherly motion your miserable son. And then Abraham says in response to Isaac, I know the easiest thing is to blame me. Sure, why not? Blame your lonely father. And this goes on. We're not going to read the whole thing. Isaac says, just look what you're doing, Father. You're sacrificing your one beloved son. And he just sort of articulates, just look what you're doing. And Abraham says to him, it's so cruel of you. How can you tell me? How can you spell out to me in vivid detail what I'm doing? That is the cruelest thing you can do. Okay? Abraham keeps saying, I have no choice. Why are you telling me what I'm doing? Why are you spelling it out to me? I have no choice but to sacrifice my son. This goes on for a while. We'll skip to the end. Right? Isaac says, no, you slaughter you slaughter merciful and compassionate daddy. You slaughter me, pious daddy. Isaac says, you're so pious doing what you have to do. And he says, kill your father, bandit, kill him. Right? So Abraham sees himself as the victim now, because his son is sarcastically calling him merciful. And this is sort of the intergenerational strife, the intergenerational dispute that Hanoch Levin saw going on. The ending is this very dramatic moment. Let's see here. Abraham calls his son murderer. Lie down, right? The irony here, of course, is extreme, right? The murderer's father is calling his son a murderer because his son is pointing out what his father is doing. He's making his father humanize him. His father doesn't want to humanize him now. Suddenly, a voice, I hear a voice, right? This is again hearkening back to the biblical tale. Abraham says, what voice? No way, lie down. Isaac, a voice from heaven. Abraham, where do you get a voice from heaven? Lie down. Isaac, I don't know. He said, lay not thine hand upon the lad. Abraham, I heard nothing. Isaac, you've been hearing impaired for a long time now. Here, he's repeating it for the second time. Lay not thine hand upon the lad. Didn't you hear? Abraham, no. Isaac, I swear to you, lay not thine hand upon the lad. Father, I swear to you, I heard a voice from heaven. And the final piece here, that on my part, I was ready, but a voice is a voice. You saw for yourself that on my part, I was fine. We were both fine. On our part, we were both fine, right, Father? We weren't fine? It all ended happily, Father. Why are you sad? Abraham says, I'm thinking of what's going to happen if other fathers have to slaughter their children. What will save them? Isaac, there's always be a voice from heaven, And this was an explosive show. This was an explosive play. People, again, I don't have the details in front of me, but you can read about it, about the reaction this got. People storming out and making disruptions. For Hanoch Levin, it's not hard to turn off empathy. This is a theme that runs through all his work. We're capable as human beings of turning off empathy. We're capable of dehumanizing. We're capable of committing murder, and we do it all the time. Hanoch Levin says it's the most human thing. And in that place, the person who tries to humanize, right? From that mindset, the person who tries to say, look, this is a human being you're killing, becomes the enemy. He becomes the murderer from the other perspective. And it's that interplay that Hanoch Levin explores often in his work. I think, to me, the message of this play is, where we've started, and we're going to look at a few others, is, just, you better be willing to look at what you're doing. If you can't look at what you're doing, then there might be something wrong with you. that might be a problem. If you can't look at the consequences of what you're doing, if you can't humanize, if you can't see the humanity of the people that you're harming, there might be something wrong there. And this deafness, which is, parallel to a kind of moral deafness, will you be able to hear the voice to stop? Will you be able to know when enough is enough? Or are you too hard of hearing? And this last piece of, I have no choice. God tells me I have to do it. We have no choice. It breaks my heart to kill my son, but I have no choice. Hanoch Levin is very suspicious of that kind of reasoning and that kind of thinking. Around this time, he wrote a cabaret called You and Me and the Next War. And it captured the sense of, Israel was working itself into a cycle. At the time, this was prophetic. Again, now, this is, I think, the lived reality. And this is me speaking. This is also other people who've commented, who's written about the work of Hanoch Levin and know the histories of these decades better than me, that when Hanoch Levin was writing in the 70s, there was this deep sense of anxiety that Israel is getting itself into a cycle of violence, a cycle of wars that's never going to end. And now we can say, speaking from the year 2023, that this was borne out. Anyone who lives in Israel, who has family in Israel, who is invested in the politics of that region will tell you, absolutely, we are living through this nightmare of constant war and reprisal. And in this cabaret of Ani v'at ve'ani b'milchama haba'ah, you and me in the next war, there's this song. He says, when we walk out, there's always one more. You and I and the next war. When we go to sleep, there's always one more. You and I and the next war. When we smile at each other in a moment of love, smiles along with us the war from above. When we wait impatiently for a baby to be born, he sits along with us the very next war. When they knock, and this is the final stanza now, when they knock on the door, there is always one more. You and I and the next war. And when it's all over, there's still one more too. The very next war, the picture and you. So the idea being this pall, the shroud, this fog that hangs over Israeli society, the constant waiting for the next war, the constant waiting for this continuing cycle of violence. And the ending of the ironic ending is that, the three of them, you and I, which are like the two lovers in the next war, becomes the lover, the picture, and the next war. So of course, the implication there is that, one of them is now dead. And the chorus, there's this chorus which goes like this, which comes, repeats over and over again, which I just want to translate it. There's a lot of wordplay here, which is very powerful. He says, at ve'ani ve'milchama ba'ah, you, me, in the next war. Hamilchama ve'milchama haba aleinu letova. This is a pun. This is drawing from the Jewish prayer liturgy around the new month. When we say that the new month is coming, we say it should come for us for good tidings. It should be a blessing upon us. So he says that hamilchama haba aleinu letova, this next war which is coming upon us should be of good tidings. At ve'ani ve'milchama ba'ah, you, me, in the next war. Shetamsi menucha nechona. A very biting pun here. Tamsim menucha nechona literally means should find a peaceful rest, kind of, something like that. So should find a peaceful resting place, and it's used here with a dual meaning, with the meaning of it should bring us peace. We should be able to rest after this war. But this language in the Jewish liturgy of resting, a final peaceful resting place, these words is in the context of death, of course, and this is the context that Hanoch Levin sought to explore and express in his work. Hanoch Levin had a deep sense of just the horror of war. When you're caught up in this nationalistic cycle, it's so easy to just have a movie, Marvel movie kind of sense of war. Other books describe this well too. All Quiet on the Western Front has an amazing scene where the soldier protagonist meets his father, and his father has like these romantic notions of war. And so Hanoch Levin saw this and critiqued this in his society. This generation which loved the soldier and glorified the battle. This is a very short little vignette from also the same cabaret, You, Me, and the Next War. And it's this just beautiful scene. There's like narrator. And the narrator says, the son comes home to his house from the battlefield. This is the narrator narrating what's happening on scene. It's all very short, but very, very poignant. So he says, narrating, the son comes home. And then the narrator says, narrating what's going on scene, the mother hugs the son, and the son sits on the chair, and the father looks lovingly at his son, and the mother looks lovingly at the son, and the son looks lovingly at his mother, and the son looks lovingly at the father, and the mother looks at the father, and the mother looks lovingly, and the father looks lovingly at the mother. There's a pause. The father and the mother and the son who came back from the battlefield are all looking at each other. Another pause. And then the son covers his face in his hands and is crying. He's bawling from whatever he did or whatever he saw in battle. And the narrator continues. And here they sit looking at each other, happy and filled up with joy until this very day. Hanoch Levin wrote throughout his whole life. He was very prolific. As we've talked about before, he was, of course, very controversial and throughout his whole career. He wrote up until his death in 1999. Rabin was assassinated in 1995. And Hanoch Levin was really able to understand, I think, and prophesy, just see clearly the future of Israel. And his gift was his ability to capture and put into words sort of the reality which I think we're largely living through today. And so he has a story, a play, which I want to look at. It's called Murder, a play in 3 acts. And the play opens with a scene of soldiers and an Arab boy who is presumably dead. And it explores just that's the opening scene. The opening words: he dead or just, flesh soldier dead. What did Hanoch Levin see that caused him to write this scene and this story? It centers on the murder of this boy, this Arab boy, at the hands of soldiers. I think Hanoch Levin understood the nature of war, the nature of power, the nature of a war against terror, and he saw clearly that these things always lead to horrendous abuses. You can call it evil if you want. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not about evil, not evil. It's just human for Hanoch Levin. It's just painfully human. You take 18-year-old kids out of high school. You give them a gun. You put them in charge. You say this person's a potential terrorist. The kid is scared for his life. Everyone's scared for their life. You get atrocities. You get horrific atrocities. What did Hanoch Levin see that inspired him to write this brutal image, this brutal indictment of, I would say, occupation? I in a sense, I don't know, but there's plenty of things that you can draw from. I don't want to get too political at this point, but there's been all sorts of examples, scandals, you might say, of Israeli soldiers posing with blindfolded captured terrorists, like taking selfies with them. There's just images that are, sometimes criticized by the world, but heralded and praised in my community of, quote, terrorists. I mean, they might be terrorists. I'm not saying they're not terrorists, but the power of the label terrorist does so much work here, of terrorists, captured terrorists stripped down into their underwear, blindfolded, tied up. This dehumanizing effect of, war on terror. And the extreme example of this, again, this is just the end point. This is just the natural consequence of these kinds of wars and these kinds of policies. The end point of this is the Abu Ghraib, torture and prisoner abuse. And this book is about that. This play is about that. So let's see what we get. So the two soldiers, so pale and flushed. So soldier 1, soldier 2. Is he dead or just? Second soldier, dead. Because if he's not dead, second soldier, he's dead. It's verified. First soldier, I never saw a dead person. Second soldier, well, you finally have, right? I mean, these are young kids with guns, right? That's the nature of armies. 18-year-old kids out of high school. And then the boy, the Arab boy, have pity on me. The first soldier, he's alive. Second soldier, regard him as dead. This is the key move in Hanoch Levin's work. This capacity to regard someone as dead, to dehumanize, to solve the problem of empathy. Just regard him as dead. The boy says, I want my daddy. He'll take me to the doctor. Have pity on me. I want daddy. The first soldier, I can't listen to any more of that begging. Second soldier, really, how much can you take? What's the big deal he's begging for? Garbage all around and this guy's muttering, daddy? First soldier, let's go. We've got no business here. We won't hear him. Second soldier, you've got something there. He's a big boy. He can die all by himself. Skipping a bit, the first soldier, God Almighty, we really can do anything, right? This awareness of the power that they have. They can do anything with this boy. I'm touching him and he lets me. No protest, no revolt. Like his flesh isn't his anymore. I don't understand it. Still a human being, and yet not anymore. I don't understand it. You can do anything to him, anything. Second soldier, the world is a big place. Now the father comes in. Anybody seen my boy? The soldiers get up off the boy's corpse. You mean this? The father says, I don't know. I can't see from here. I'm afraid that will be him. What will I do if it's him? He recognizes his son. Oh, he sinks down on the body and groans. Oh, my boy, my boy, my boy. Oh, my son. Oh, son, what can I do? He falls silent. I think he needs a doctor. The soldier says he's dead. The father, dead, my boy? And death? Get up, boy. Boy, get up. Boy, open your eyes. It's your father, boy. Boy, say something. Soldier, he's dead. First soldier, it's verified. The father says, why? This is the key question. Hanoch Levin's asking in 1997, why? And the soldiers answer, there is no why here. You understand yourself. We came here to make a search. He resisted. We tried to calm him down. He didn't calm down. He cursed and hit. All of a sudden, he pulled the knife. There was a struggle. He fell. In the end, he died. Right? It's always the way it is. It's just the nature of the situation. The nature of the security situation. We're trying to enforce security. He was scared. We were scared. A fight broke out. He died. Don't ask why. We've moved beyond. Hanoch Levin is talking about in this whole play, this whole show. We've moved beyond the historical context. We've moved beyond political disagreements. We're just in the cycle now. This is just the conveyor belt of occupation and violence. Just don't ask why. There's no why here. The father says, this eye of his, the soldier, there was a struggle. The eye is outside. It's gouged out. Somebody stabbed him in the eye. Soldier, somebody stabbed him in the eye? Father, how can you stab a person in the eye? Everybody knows what an eye is. If a grain of dust gets in it, the eye can't stand it. And here, the soldier, in the heat of the struggle maybe. The father, how can the hand gouge out an eye? Right? I mean, the implicit answer is, when you dehumanize, you can. Go back to that Abu Ghraib page. There's other articles I could post, but I hesitate to. There's other articles, again, I don't want to make this, I think Hanoch Levin's criticism here is enough. I don't need to pull up other articles that do the same. But when you dehumanize, when you're fighting a war against terror, when someone's a terrorist, anything is possible is the implied answer. In the heat of the struggle, I'm telling you, it couldn't be foreseen. Knives were pulled out. He fell with the eye on the knife. Father, look what you did to my boy. Look at his face. How could you ruin a boy? Such a beautiful boy. Everybody loved him. And here he's stabbed in the back. Someone stabbed him in the back. The soldier says, he went wild and we're not experienced. Of course that's the answer, right? I mean, these are soldiers. They're not experienced. The kid went wild. You're soldiers. There were 3 of you. 3 soldiers can stop a boy going wild. Yes, the soldier says, after the fact, when you think about it, it could have been this or maybe that, but in the reality of battle, things happen, right? Reality of battle. The father eventually says, a boy, and you're only a boy too, he says to the pale-faced soldier, right? And this is This is playing back to what we saw in the binding of Isaac, right? This is the victim trying to humanize the victim. This is the victim saying to the oppressor, look, he's just like you, you know? And the soldiers respond, look, man, there was a mistake, but understand us. You're right. I'm a boy too. It's night. Everybody's groggy. Conditions aren't right. Normal men are sleeping. Normal men are hugging a woman. Night isn't meant for searches. The father, look how much he looks like all of you. What you wanted, he also wanted. Air to breathe, a little love. That nobody should spit in his face. Right? I mean, this is the tension that Hanoch Levin explored. This is the tension that Hanoch Levin focused on. This dynamic around humanization. Humanizing versus dehumanizing. It's so easy to dehumanize. And then there's this other side of, look at the human. He wanted just what you wanted, to breathe, you know. The dehumanization is like he's a soldier. He's a terrorist, I mean. He's a potential threat, you know. And the father says he's just like you. The soldier says, go bury him. What's done is done. Enough. Don't pester us. He's your boy, but he's dead. You must have others, or will have others. The world is full of children, right? This gap of empathy where from our perspective, whatever, you have other children. Get on with your life. But of course, implied here is that for the father, there's no getting on with his life, obviously. Pale soldier, if you please, be a man. You're crazy with grief, but it doesn't work that way. He's dead, dead. The father, look how much he looks like you, right? And this is the worst thing you could say to the oppressor. This is in Hanoch Levin's world, this is the worst thing you could say. The soldier becomes furious, grabs him by the throat, right? Because the father is trying to humanize his boy, and nothing makes the oppressor angrier. Get him out of here and bury him. You lost a son and you're whining. Learn to stop. Get him out of here and bury him. Flush soldier, shut up. The father, you've got power now, and all I have left is to obey. Yes, obey. And when peace comes someday, we'll be neighbors and we'll come visit. We'll meet at memorial services and things like that. Finally, we'll become friends, you know. They now want to, you know, they threaten to kill the father. The tan soldier says, you know, talk to him while I go from behind to kill him, basically. When I look into your eyes, I can definitely identify with you, right? This is him talking to the father. The father knows what's happening. You're going to kill me, but I don't care. Death will be a relief to me. The soldier says, we don't kill old men, and we don't stick knives in the back. That, of course, is an irony. And just as they're about to kill the father, a messenger comes in. The time of murder is over. The time of murder is over. The furious rage has come to an end. Winds of reconciliation are blowing. The time of murder is finished, right? This means the war is over. The war is over. It's peace now. People look back at the bad times and ask, how could we? How is it possible? Our children will not understand. Our grandchildren will laugh. Our great-grandchildren will not know what it's about. They will study history with a shrug, with a smile. Of waking from a deep sleep, people say to one another, peace, peace. Of course, what's implied here, what the soldiers don't understand, right? So the soldier says, peace, peace. The tan soldier landed all of a sudden, sooner than we thought, grabbed us by the balls. But what they can't understand is the father. Peace? You say peace and wound my heart. If it's peace, why is it an hour late? If it's late and my son is already dead, what good is peace to me? No, the word peace pains me. I hear cheers and they stab me. I hear laughter and I drop my face into my hands and weep. I lost my son. Those aren't just words. My son, I lost. That was my son. You killed him. How will I ever have peace? I would like all fathers to lose their sons, so I won't see a smile on any lips, and the word joy will vanish, right? The cycle of violence doesn't stop with peace. When people don't recover from these losses, and people are changed forever from these experiences. The soldier says, nevertheless, peace upon you. Peace unto you. They say, you're our brother, you're our father. You are our enemy, and from now on, our brother and our father. Soldier holds out his hands. The circumstances were different. Everyone who judges us has to understand the circumstances were different. The father says, after some small talk here, wait just a minute. There's one thing you didn't mention. His pants are down, and there's a cut here that somebody started around his penis. I won't ask who did it or what for. You won't be able to answer. In the heat of the struggle. That's a cut they started when he was already lying unconscious or dead. I won't ask what for. I only want to ask what were his last words. The soldier, we told you, he cursed and he tried to struggle, so that's why it happened. But his real last words, after he was lying flat, give me his last words. Soldier, he cursed, and then he died. Absolutely, he died. The father, you left me with a corpse. Now the pain starts. When the turmoil dies down, meaning this is me interjecting, when the war is over, right? When we finish the operations, so to speak, and you're left alone, you and the corpse, he and you, and afterward you and the grief, you and the ghost slipping away from you. But it doesn't relent. It demands its own, demands all of you, and it's right. My son, that from now on, I am not my own master. You rule over me from now on until the day I die, right? And that is Hanoch Levin's interrogation of the cycle of violence. You know, these are debts that you just can't ignore. You can't just say, oh, we have peace now. You know, it doesn't work that way. People don't just walk away from these experiences unchanged. We'll stop here in scene 2 and scene 3. We get more depictions of the cycle of violence. The father, in his search for revenge, thinks he found the soldier who killed his son, and he ends up killing a groom on his wedding night and raping the bride. The idea being, you know, basically you could say he becomes a terrorist as a result of this experience of his. And you know, the cycle continues, and there's more scenes like that as the story continues. Yeah, I'm reminded of Act 3 in The Child Dreams. In Act 3 in The Child Dreams, you have refugees on a ship, and they find land, and they go. You know, this basically, they're fleeing persecution, the refugees, and they need somewhere to land. Otherwise, they'll have to go back to where they're fleeing from, and they'll be killed. And they meet a bureaucrat who's like the customs official, and the customs official says, "I'm sorry, we can't take you in." And they're pleading, and they say, you know, if only you knew our fear, if only you knew our fear of death, you know, you would take us in. And the customs official says, everyone knows fear of death, you know, fear of death. We all know fear of death, you know. And what ends up happening in that scene is they present the child. They say the child, there's a child on our ship, just take the child. And there's like cameramen there. And so the bureaucrat says, okay, we'll take the child. And then this is the child's mother, take the child's mother. And the bureaucrat says, no, definitely can't take both. Because, you know, once we start taking mothers, I'll have to live with my conscience of, you know, all the other people that I turned away. And so we're not taking any mothers. So the mother says, alone, I'm his mother. The governor says, we've got a lot of orphans here. Another passenger says, let her land with the child. One woman, one child. The governor says, no, from the start, we won't take the child either. But we gave an inch, and they're already demanding a mile. This creates a precedent. Skipping ahead. So the mother says to the child, a crack is opened in the wall. Only you will flee through it. The child says, Mother, I know you don't really mean it. I remember how you told me before we sailed, never will I part from you, never. And the mother says, my son, forget what I told you. The child says, Mother, then, too, you told me that even if you're forced to, I'll know you don't really mean it, and we never shall part. The mother says, my child, listen to me. Parting is hard for you and for me, but we can't be together anymore. The child. And continuing the quote, and that will be our little secret. That's what you said. The mother. But I'll come back someday, you'll see. The child. That never under any circumstances will we part. The mother, shaking her head, something has changed. Listen to me. There's no time. I'm your mother. I gave you life. But the way our world is built, life is now there with that man. With that, and with me only death. I understood, mother. I understood. We really will part. But really, we won't part. The mother hits the child. Forget everything. Forget what I said. Really, 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 we have to part. Now forget everything and go and don't come back. The child, forget what? Everything? Or only that? And how will I know what to forget and what not? And when were you really my mother, then or now? Who is who? Who gives life? Who kills? Who is laughing with me? Who at me? All the faces are melting, flowing as in a dream. Where are the faces of light today? Teach me faces. I'm a child. You taught me to read and write now. Give me the alphabet of faces. The mother shouts, take him away from me, for God's sake. Tear my child away from me. They grab the child, and the child screams, I want my mother, I want my mother. Anyway, the child ends up escaping from the people who grab him from his mother, and he runs back to his mother. And in doing so, he goes back to die. A quote from Hanoch Levin that stays with me, that I think is very crucial to his work. In Hebrew it goes, Haro'eh tametim ein lo milim lahagid. It rhymes in Hebrew. It's a nice little rhyming couplet from you and me in the next war. In English, translates to, he who's seen the dead has no words to say. He moves aside and goes on living like one who's lost his way. And of course there are no words. There are no words to say. And it's that willingness, that understanding of, the unbearable aspect of war. Completely unassimilable. There are no words. Murder has an epilogue. Let's see if we can find it. There's an epilogue at the very end. The epilogue. 2 years later, street morning children are playing. Enter a stumbling old man, barely tottering. His back is stooped, emitting a weak voice. Daddy, daddy. This is the old man. This is the father of the boy who was killed in the beginning of the show. The pale soldier, I don't see you. I've gone blind in the war that came after that one. But I owe you an answer. Your son didn't curse. He wept. And he couldn't stop shaking. His last words, and they will peck at my brain as long as I live, were, have pity on me. I want daddy.